Hey guys, this is Felicia Mariah, and today I wanted to share my new obsession with you by bringing you a brand new watercolor makeup tutorial and cosplay look inspired by Gris. I'll be sharing clips from the game, so just a heads up if you haven't played it yet and want to experience all the beauty on your own. So if you don't know what Gris is, it's an incredibly beautiful indie game by Nomada Studio. The game follows a girl, Gris, who wakes up in the hands of a statue of a woman. As the statue breaks apart, Gris falls to the colorless world below, heartbroken. As she progresses forward through what I believe to be her mind, she enters into different stages of grief, sometimes diving even deeper into darkness until she can face her inner demons and come out on the other side, back to the light. Each stage unlocks a new color, bringing it back into her world and introducing a whole new perspective to the world you have already been exploring. This game just resonated with me on so many different levels and was such a delight to play. From the stunning watercolor atmosphere, the meditative gameplay, the elegant soundtrack and sound design that accompanies it, this became an unexpected new favorite that I can play again and again. And I couldn't help myself but to get inspired to cosplay Gris along with a watercolor makeup look. For this look, I combined a mix of references from the gameplay and character artwork. I loosely followed my main reference, which was the game poster. But as Gris is a sketch and a watercolor animation, her colors tend to shift a bit throughout the game, especially the hair. So I kept that in mind as I let this look form and flow on its own, much like watercolor does. Alright, enough of me falling in love with Gris all over again. Let's get colorful. I did actually shoot with audio while filming, but realized once I finished that none of the sound actually recorded, so today you'll be getting the full VO experience. I started this video with my concealer and foundation already on since I figured you already know how to do that. We are going to start by putting eye primer on the lid as well as underneath the eye since we'll be adding quite a bit of paint here. Time to get my hair out of my way. That didn't take long. After the eye primer is on, we're going to start the watercolor eyes. I'm using my Kryolan Aquacolor Palette and starting with applying this yellow. It ended up being too canary yellow, so I began mixing this burnt orange as well until I got a color I liked. Using a somewhat dense but fluffy brush, begin applying your first layer. We are going to be building on each layer as it dries, so you want the first to be the lightest. You can use your finger to lightly tap the paint to spread it out and achieve more of that translucent look. I didn't do that here, but if you'd like, you could also add in a little bit of white for that bottom layer. At first, I was trying to control the paint too much, but I found it actually works better if you just let it flow and keep applying more water to your paint. Continue to apply sporadically. Don't be afraid to go heavier in one color than the other in some areas to create more of a watercolor effect. Just be sure to blend the colors together to create somewhat of a gradient in different areas of the lid and under the eye. When your first layer is in a happy place, let it dry and move to the next eye. You're going to be using the same technique, but don't make it too symmetrical. Let it dry. And now it's time for round 2. This time use a little less water and be sure not to spread it out too much. This will make more pigmented paint pools. As you continue to add, take little breaks to let it dry. You will have better results this way. I was being a little impatient at times, which takes longer in the end because you just end up doing more layers. Since I realized I was getting impatient, I decided to move on to the cheeks while my eyes fully dried. Gris has very rosy cheeks with round blush. For this, I use a mix of pink and white to make a very light pastel pink. I then did a light layer of my pale powder foundation over it. Once I was done with the cheeks, I moved back to my eyes for the final layer. There's really no end to how long you can spend on the eyes. It's really just until you feel good about how it looks. So have fun with it. Now that we're done with the eyes, we can go on to adding the dramatic tear. I'm using a dense pointed brush to start the teardrop. Start with mixing blue and purple to make a more indigo color. Now this is where I fluffed up. Don't do what I did. Make sure you do not use too much water right below your eye, since it will pool in your lower crease and will ruin all of your beautiful yellow watercolor. Make sure your paint is nice and creamy with very little water, and dab the beginning of the tear at the lower line of your eye. Continue to dab it down until you reach the upper part of your cheek. Once you're there, you can start using more water to actually get it to run down your face. Lay down a good amount of pigment first, and then keep adding droplets of water to the paint pool until gravity takes over. We are going to use blue and purple for the tear because, let's face it, I'm digging all of these colors together. While it's still wet, use a watery purple to bleed into a small area of the tear, and then lightly tap in more water. If it becomes too purple, you can just add a little bit more of the original blue, some water, and you're good to go. It's also not a bad idea to touch up the top of the tear once you're done. Gris brows in the poster are a sketched gray-black, but to better match my teal and blue wig, I used those colors. Laying down the teal first, I just followed my natural brow shape. I then went in with blue in a sweeping motion. Let those puppies dry. To finish off the brows, I use this indigo mascara to bring back some texture. Now I'm just tightlining with cream eyeliner and using the same mascara I used on my brows for my lashes. Nothing crazy here. Ah yes, the moment I realized I didn't put in my contacts. Oh, poor Gris Felicia. You don't even know that no one can hear you. Aw, and here's where I go back to the reference picture to see if she actually has blue eyes. Yep, I know. She definitely does. I thought we learned this lesson during the Hades tutorial. Third time's a charm, right? Since I was running out of daylight, I kept going and skipped the blue eyes, but when I wear this look again, I will definitely be adding the contacts. Alright, moving on. Start by using a liquid foundation on the lips to remove any color. Then begin adding in pink. Start with a light pink by mixing it in with white. Then, as we did with the eyes, add layers of darker and darker pink. I was really excited to get to the lips as I love how they are illustrated on the game poster. Even the lips were watercolor and not filled in all the way, so I tried to replicate that here. Lean heavy with the color on one side of the lips and then a lot lighter on the other side. This should not take as many layers as the eyes. Mine turned out a little bit more gradient than I wanted, so I went back in with foundation in some spots. Now for the scariest part of the tutorial, these sketch lines. I'm using a super fine liquid eyeliner and following a couple of the creases in my lips. I apologize for the blur. I kept leaning into my mirror, which leaned me out of the focus spot. No more 2.8 for me. I also outlined my cupid's bow and the outline of my lips, leaving some gaps open. So I continue with a couple sketch marks on the bottom of my nose, the bottom of my brows with a couple hairs, down one side of my nose connecting to the eyebrow, and a small sketch on the other side of my nose. We don't want to go too heavy with the sketches. Even though I tried to make the lines as thin as possible, they were still too dark and bold for me, so I used my pale powder foundation to go lightly over any lines I made. Don't forget her cute little freckles. This is another piece of Gris that tends to change colors throughout the game, so I went with a pink red. Just use the thinnest brush you have and go at it. This is another feature you don't want to make symmetrical, and it doesn't have to have any rhyme or reason. Just try to keep them tiny. And that is it. Time to throw on the final touches. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this Gris makeup tutorial. I absolutely loved the whole process of this, playing the game, figuring out my costume that I could use for it, the different types of wigs. I tried dyeing a wig, which I might show you later. I even had a crafting party to make the backdrop that you see here. I just want to say I really appreciate everybody who jumped in and helped out, or people who are following and sharing their encouragement. It really just makes a huge difference when you're trying to create new art, create new tutorials, content, whatever you want to call it. Whenever you're creating, it's always so amazing when you have people backing you up, and I appreciate you. So that being said, thanks again for watching. Give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. If you love watercolor, if you loved the Gris game, if you're gonna play it, if you have a Nintendo Switch. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be doing a lot more cosplay and costume fun, so get ready for it. And I just want to take a moment to give a shout out to Adar, who is my angel. She always edits my videos and just takes them to the next level. But for this video, she was really on hand, spent the whole day with me, and we had so much fun creating this together. So thank you, Adar. I love you so much. I also want to thank Berlinist, who made the soundtrack for Gris and not only gave me permission to use it in this tutorial, but also provided the whole soundtrack. Here are the songs that we used in this video, but definitely check out the Gris soundtrack on Spotify. I love you all, and I hope to see you again next time.